Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make an apple scone cake, or maybe you call it an apple scone cake, and this is what it looks like. What we have is a top and a bottom layer of dough, and then in between we have lightly sweetened chunks of apple and chopped nuts. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare our apple filling. So you will need 1 1/4 pounds, which is about 560 grams, of a firm textured apple. So that is about 3 large apples. Now, you can use, there's different types of apples. You want an apple that it won't lose its shape as it bakes. It won't become all mushy. I'm using Granny Smith today. You could use like a Honeycrisp, a Braeburn, a Golden Delicious, Rome, Jonathan, John of Gold, lots of different ones. And if you want, you could use like 2 different types. So that would give you a more complex flavor. So you want to peel and core and cut your apples into about 1 inch, 2.5 centimeter chunks. So you could peel your apples like with a vegetable peeler or an apple peeler, or I'm going to show you what I do. I take a sharp knife, I cut my apple in half, and then I take my knife and I cut down on either side of the core, straight down, like so, and then across here. Do the same with this. And then I just take a paring knife and I just get the skin off. Like so. And then you want to cut it into, like I said, about 1 inch chunks, 2.5 centimeters, and put them in the bowl. So I'll just do the rest of this. Okay, so that into chunks. So then I just put in a large bowl. Now, because we have to make our dough still, the apple filling is going to sit just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just squeeze about maybe a half a tablespoon of lemon juice. Try not to get the seeds in there. Over the top. And that will help prevent our apples from turning brown. And then just toss that. And then, now I'm going to add 3 tablespoons, 40 grams of light brown sugar. These Granny Smith tend to be a little more tart than other apples. You can taste your apples and adjust your sugar. Use less, use a little more. And then, of course, I love cinnamon, ground cinnamon with apples in an apple cake. So I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Again, you can vary that. And I'm just going to toss that. And then I am also going to add a 1/2 cup, 50 grams of chopped nuts. Now, today I'm using walnuts. Sometimes I use pecans, sometimes I use hazelnuts, almonds. And if you don't want to use nuts, you could use raisins or dried cranberries, or you could just leave all that out and just have the apples. So that's our apple filling. Okay, I'm just going to clean up, and then when we come back, we will start our scone dough. So now, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and then you will need a 9-inch, 23 centimeter pie pan. I know, say it's a cake, and we're doing it in a pie pan, but you could use a cake pan, but it makes it so much easier using a pie pan. And then I'm just going to lightly spray it, or you could lightly butter it. And then for our scone dough, I'm just doing it by hand. I'm not going to use my mixer or food processor here. So you will need a large bowl. Now I've put 2 cups, which is 260 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know as plain flour. And to that, I'm going to add 1/3 cup, 65 grams of granulated white sugar, and 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon, just 1 gram of salt. My personal preference is kosher salt because I find it a little milder tasting than like a regular table salt, but either one. And just gonna mix all that together, and then you will need a half a cup, 113 grams of cold butter. You could use salted or unsalted here. If you use salted, you could probably just leave out that salt I just put in. And as you can see here, I have cut it into small chunks because what we got to do is cut the butter into our flour, and if it's in small chunks, it's a lot easier, a lot faster. So let's put it in there. And then we want to, like I said, cut it into, we want to get our butter into little small pieces, kind of like the whole mixture looks like coarse crumbs. So I'm using what's called a pastry blender, like that. You could use just 2 knives. You could use your fingers tips if you want. And then with this, you just press straight down. Scrape off every once in a while, but keep doing that until you have the butter in little small chunks. Okay, so there we have it. Scrape that off. So this is what you're looking for, just kind of coarse crumbs. Do not worry if obviously you can't get all the butter in exactly the same size. So you have a few larger chunks, that is perfectly fine. So there, what I'm going to do is just make like a little well in the center. And for our wet ingredients, I have 1 large egg. And I'm just going to whisk that to break it up. And I'm also going to add, you don't have to, I love vanilla. So I am going to add a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of pure vanilla extract. Like I said, you can leave it out. Some people don't like that flavor in their scones. Okay, put that in there. And then you will also need a half a cup, 120 grams, 120 milliliters of either milk or cream. You can use either. It really depends, you know, how rich do you want your scones to taste. I mean, if you like it really rich, you can use a heavy cream, light cream, half and half, or, you know, you can even use whole milk or maybe a reduced fat. And the thing is, I'm not going to add all that milk. I'm going to add most of it, but, you know, depending when you're at home, everybody, you know, flour, when it's transported, you know, sometimes it can absorb moisture, so then at home you may notice a difference in how much liquid your flour can absorb. So what I'm going to do is I put most of it in, and then I'm going to work it in like so and see. Now I probably will have to add it all. I might even have to add a little more, you know, at home. So just keep that in mind when you're making scones, that it really depends on your flour. So I'm just going to work it by hand. Try not to overwork your scone dough, or it tends to be a little tough. See, mine is coming together really good. I don't think I'm going to need all of it, so keep that in mind. Yeah, that's fine. So there we have that. So now we are going to have to divide this in half. Now, I got a scale. You got a scale at home? You know how I am about scales. You can use it here. Or you could just eyeball it, because it's not super critical. So now I'm going to put one aside for our top layer, and I'm going to do our bottom layer. Now, lightly flour your surface. Now you can just pat this into a size. You can just pat it right into your pie plate there, or you can roll it, whichever you find easier. Always keep moving. If you're rolling it or even just pressing it, keep moving your dough around to make sure it's not sticking. And if it does, put more flour down. You know, this is like a rustic looking cake. I mean, you could have it for breakfast, have it for dessert, any time of the day. Very forgiving dough. So I'm just gonna fit it in there. Just press it in, stretch it a bit if you have to. Just get it up the sides. Flour there. It's looking pretty good. Okay. And then I'm just going to pour all our wonderful apples and chopped walnuts in there. Scrape all that out, that good stuff. Distribute those nuts a little more and the apple. It looks pretty good. And then, hands are a mess, but take our top piece and again, pat it, roll it, your choice. But if you're not, you know, if you do pies or want to do pies, this is a great way to practice with this because it's so forgiving and kind of practice working with dough. I think that's about right. You can get your ruler out and get it about 9 inches, 23 centimeters, but I'm just eyeballing it here. And then what you want to do is press the 2 layers of dough together, just like we would when you're doing a pie. Looks good. I mean, you could get fancy and crimp the edges if you want. I normally don't even bother. So like I said, this is a rustic cake pie. So there we have it. And then what you want to do is take a little cream or milk with a pastry brush and just brush the whole top because that'll help with browning. Try not to let the cream pool. We don't want that. Okay. I like how it's all kind of bumpy. Cool looking. Okay, and then I'm just going to sprinkle a little sugar over the top, lightly sweeten it. And then we just want, so the steam can escape, just cut, I'm just going to cut like 2 slats like that. Okay, so now into our oven, preheated oven, about, I would say 40 to 45 minutes. You want, of course, the scone dough to be set and nicely browned. And then if you take a sharp knife and you insert it down into the apples, they will be just tender. You don't want them mushy. You want them just tender. So I would say 40 to 45 minutes, depending on your oven. So our apple scone cake is done. See the crust nicely browned. And then if I take a knife and I insert it down in to the apples, they're tender. The knife goes in nice and easy, but I can feel they're not mushy. So that's what you're looking for. So now put your pan on a wire rack, and then a little hot right now. I'm just going to let this cool, maybe 15 minutes to a half hour. And when we come back, we will try a piece. Okay, so now it's cooled down a bit. Still warm, but I think we can cut into it. So take a sharp knife. That first piece, no matter, it's always the hardest one to get out, but we'll give it a try. Here. Okay. Oh, I can smell the cinnamon apples. There we have, isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so now you can have it plain. You could have it with whipped cream. You could have it with Devon cream. You could have it with vanilla ice cream or lightly sweetened yogurt. Lots of choices there if you don't want to have it just as is. Oh. I think you kind of got the best of both worlds here. It's a scone, but it's kind of like it's a cake pie. You got the 2 layers of scone dough. It's nice and crisp on the outside. Nice and soft and tender, not too sweet. And then you've got the nice apples with the little cinnamon, sugar, crunch of a nut. It's a really nice, you could serve it for breakfast, brunch, dessert, any time of the day when when you want something a little sweet. So try this. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.